Alright, this is the last video on the Harlem Renaissance, and actually this is culture of the 1920s, not just the Harlem Renaissance, but some other culture as well thrown in. First off, we have some artists. We have Edward Hopper. Now, I don't like the way that this keynote worked because they kind of have the pictures laid in there. Edward Hopper made a picture that was called Nighthawks. It's been used by that 70s show, Simpson, Family Guy. A lot of people use this, but kind of showed the night scene that people were about. Thomas Hart Benton, he was a muralist. He made murals all across this country and just a different art form. And the last one, the front one there you can see is Georgia O'Keeffe, and she is a regional painter, and she actually made this one of the Southwest called Cow Skull and Flowers. Not very original, but you paint what you saw, okay? So we have those three big artists there, okay? Next, we have some aviators, okay? After Orville and Wilbur Wright came up and Kitty Hawk and made their famous thing, aviation was kind of seen as a rich man's thing, and no one really could do it. And Charles Lindbergh really kind of flipped the script on that. His plane was called the Spirit of St. Louis, and he is the first man to perform the first solo transatlantic flight. Now later on in the 1940s, there's actually something called the Lindbergh baby disaster about his son, and we'll get into that. And also, Charles Lindbergh kind of hurts his career because he is a Nazi supporter. And this is before we know of the Holocaust. He actually thought Adolf Hitler had some pretty good ideas, and that actually kind of hurts him. Now, Amelia Earhart kind of has the mentality of anything you can do, I can do better. And bringing up this, she will be the first female to solo pilot a plane. And famously, one of her planes was lost over the Bermuda Triangle, and that mystery there, and they can never find the wreckage, and that's a really interesting story, but I don't have a lot of time to get into it, okay? Now, the next one is Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth is the first culturally pop icon. That meant you didn't have to watch baseball. You knew who Babe Ruth was. Kind of like Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is the big one today because so many people don't even have to watch basketball. They just see that Jumpman logo and they go, I know that's Jordan. Now, Babe Ruth was kind of in that, and in fact, a lot of people said, oh, the Babe Ruth candy bar kind of hit the scene here. That's about Babe Ruth. In actuality, that's not. It was for Grover Cleveland's daughter named Ruth. So it actually had nothing to do with Babe Ruth, but they did kind of capitalize and use it. But though the company there famously said, no, it was not about the athlete, but rather the president's daughter. Okay. Now we have Paul Robeson. Paul Robeson was kind of the 1920s version of Denzel Washington, okay? And by that I mean if there was a strong African-American lead role, Paul Robeson was it. And he was a star of the screen as well as the stage, meaning plays, and kind of was culturally significant for that. There was Josephine Baker. Josephine Baker was an African-American dancer, and she was actually kind of a cabaret dancer, a risque dancer. Made a lot of her name in Paris and other countries, but kind of went along the sands of African-American women could be beautiful. They didn't have to kind of hide behind this second-class citizenship and see this. They could stand out. Josephine Baker was the first one of that. Now, the first talkie, the first movie with sound, was called The Jazz Singer, and it featured Al Jolson. So jazz is very culturally significant because the first movie that they could have chosen to incorporate sound with and have that full experience was called The Jazz Singer. Okay. Lastly here, and about the culture, Oscar the Priest. Now, Oscar the Priest is not Catholic. He is actually a senator or a congressman. Now, he is the first congressman elected from a northern state. Now, if that's not to show you that segregation doesn't still exist, I don't know what will, because the main focus of that is had they been completely racially tolerant, they would have done this much, much earlier on, correct? But, so there's Oscar the Priest, and he is significant in that mold. That is the end of the Harlem Renaissance. Take the quiz. We now move into the Great Depression. Will be our next videos.